Hello everyone, my name is Jacob Stamba. I'm the Vice President Internal of Texas Engineering and World Health, and today I will be doing a 3D CADing software tutorial. I will be using Autodesk Fusion 360, but feel free to use any other 3D CADing software of your preference. In today's tutorial, I will be teaching you the very basics and kind of all the tools that Autodesk Fusion 360 and in general other 3D CADing softwares have to offer, and how to use those tools to create various 3D objects. In this tutorial, I will be creating, as I said, some various 3D objects. Some of them may be holiday themed. A lot of these objects are going to be very basic and simple, but the principles used to build these objects can be used to create more and more complex objects. In the second tutorial that follows this video, I built a prototype 3D autoclave solar collector, and that uses a lot of the techniques that I will be going over today. So let's begin. So the first thing when you open any 3D CADing software should look like this, a little blank screen, some kind of grid system. And just one tip before I get started is typically it's very useful to have a mouse. It's a lot easier than using like the touchpad of a keyboard and stuff like that. So typically I would suggest using a mouse. So while you can create objects just in general, like 3D objects, if you want to, typically what you want to do is you design an object using the sketch function, but you can also just go into the create section and automatically create 3D objects, which brings me to the fact of that there's two kind of basic design principles. There's like the kind of where you start with something, like let's say like some kind of cube, and you like take away from this, like you cut different like sections off to make the object that you want, which is kind of like a top bottom approach where you start very like everything already kind of like built, and then there's bottom up where you kind of sketch everything out first and then like make it 3D. And so typically I will use the sketch function rather than cutting away from 3D because it's a lot simpler and you can always go back and edit your sketches. So let's begin by going over here to the create section and click create sketch. And you can select any plane, it doesn't necessarily really matter, but for this tutorial I'll click this plane. And so now you're in the sketching interface of Autodesk. And one important thing to note is that you can't really like, you have to click finish sketch first before you do like any other like things like on your, I mean right now we don't have anything, but it won't let you like click any or use any other tools, so you click finish sketch. And so for our first design, let's create something basic like a plate. And so to do that, we're going to go to center diameter circle. We're going to click it. And Autodesk is kind of nice. A lot of times you'll notice that it'll automatically like latch on to like certain positions. Like in this case, you can see there's a square around it representing like we're latched on to some place like on the grid, like versus right there in the center where I'm not on any grid line. And in this case, you can see that the big circle means I'm right on the origin. It's typically useful to start on the origin as a starting sketch. So we'll do that. And just for reference, it doesn't really matter the like numbers of or the actual magnitude of what I'm drawing. As long as you get it more or less correctly, that'll be okay. And so in this case, let's make a circle that is 10. In my case, I have millimeters, but it can be whatever units you're using. And one important thing, actually let's delete the 10 for now. And to do that, I just clicked it and hit the delete button. So one important thing with sketching is that you can see that there's a blue, like when I had specifically when it was 10, it was black, but now it's blue. And so this is kind of what we call defining a sketch in CADing. And so when you fully define a sketch, you won't be able to click and drag it like how I'm doing here, because in this case, it's not fully defined, which means like there is no definition for how big the circle can be. Like the only definition we have is it has to start at the origin. And so to get rid of this, we can right click and hit sketch dimension. And we can say that we want this to be exactly 10 millimeters or whatever units you're using. So now you can see it went from blue to black, which tells us when I try to click and pull it, it won't let me because this diameter always has to be 10 units no matter what. So this is kind of a useful feature, like so when you edit other features, it doesn't change like baseline geometry and stuff like that. But if you did want the circle to change later on, you wouldn't really define some units on it. But in our case, we will. And so the next thing we want to do is we want to create another circle of a little bit bigger diameter. In this case, I'll do 15. And we hit OK. And so now we're pretty much done with what we need. So we're going to hit Finish Sketch. Now you can see all we have is this 2D kind of like geometry onto the plane. And so also one important thing you'll see me like reference a lot is over here is like, I'm not sure what this is called. We'll just call it the drag drop menu, but you can like hide your different things, and this gets pretty useful when you build like pretty complex like stuff. And so for now, what we're going to do is turn our 2D geometry into 3D. And to do that, we're going to use the Extrude tool. And you can also use the Press Pool tool, but I typically recommend using the Extrude. Yeah, the Extrude is just it's a lot more defined, I would say, in a way than Press Pool. So it's typically more useful to use. And so what Extrude does is it allows you to stretch any face into a 3D like dimension. So in this case, what we're going to do is we're going to click the outer face here, and you can see like I can just drag and make it like some thickness like that, but I really don't. It's not what I'm kind of going for. And so what I'm going to do is, and this is like all the definitions you can do for the Extrude tool. So as you can see, there's a lot of things. In this case, like the start tells us where you want to start it. You can do it right at the profile plane, you can offset it, or you can do from an object. And from an object we'll get into a little bit later. It's a little bit of the wild card here, but for now we'll do an offset plane, and we'll offset it by 5 units. So what this the offset does is it just literally offsets where you begin like dragging your object. And so you can also do it in both sides, 2 sides, and make it symmetric on both sides. And you can either manually type in the distance you want. In this case, it's 1. You can also change that by dragging it over here. Or you can do, as I said before, 2 object or all, which would be like just all the way through some object. And operation, so this is where Extrude comes in handy. You can do a bunch of different operations with it. You can like join 2 different bodies together, you can cut one body from another, you can make some defined intersection from another. We'll get into that a little bit later, that's a little bit more complicated. Or you could do a new body. And what a body is, I haven't really talked about yet, is just basically any 3D object. So in this case, this would be a body. And the important key is that it's 3D. Like these 2D circles over here are not really bodies, they're just sketches. But once we make it 3D, it becomes a body. So for now, we'll hit OK. And one annoying thing that AutoCAD does, it automatically hides your sketches when you create something. It can get quite annoying, so this is why it's important to have this here. And so now what we're going to do is we're going to create the base for our plate by extruding this little piece. And so in this case, we're only going to extrude this by 0.5 millimeters, or whatever units you're using. In this case, we want to just do new body again. That'll be okay. So now this doesn't really look like a plate whatsoever, but we'll make it look like that in a little bit. So one important thing is that this timeline right down here, this is what it's called. You can drag and drop and like go back to see exactly what you've done in order. So it's really important to like kind of keep this clean, and if you don't use Control Z when you're CADing, especially in Autodesk. Try to like delete stuff as you go instead of like just Control Z. Like for instance, like if I wanted to edit like how much I extruded this, first of all, there's multiple ways to find it. If I just click the like what I did itself, you can see that these 3 little marks appeared right here, and that's like telling me where I created this. And I also can click this itself to see what it created. So in case like there'll be times where your timeline will go like way off screen. You have to like scroll back and forth to figure out what you want. So in this case, if you right click and you hit edit feature, it'll allow you to edit the feature. So in this case, I'm gonna make this 0.05 to match the plate. And one really useful thing about the timeline is anything you edit behind, like where you're at the timeline, it automatically corrects everything else you've done from that point. So let's say like I created some circle here and I put like another sphere or something like based upon like the geometry of the first circle we drew. Autodesk will automatically correct all geometries created from the initial one. So that's something really nice that it does. So now to continue making our plate, we're going to use a really cool tool called, it's not here, if you go to create and you go to Loft. What Loft does, it allows you to connect faces of like different geometries. In this case, you can see like in the, I don't know if it's going to let me go to the picture, but you can see in this picture right here, it's connecting a square face to the circle. So the Loft feature automatically defines like what the best way to do that is. So it's a really useful tool. And so while there's a lot of different ways to do it, for now we're just going to click the profiles that we want to connect. In this case, we want to connect the the top of this plate and the bottom of this plate. This should work. Oh no, I clicked too many. Not sure why this is not working. So this is the fun thing about Autodesk. You get to do a lot of different experimenting to see what works best. So in this case, let's try to select this again. You want me to select the edge? Where is it saying? Try and change the input, swapping. Oh. I just want it connected. I've never actually seen what this is. This tangent stuff, this must be a new part of it. So for now we'll just go with connected. Not sure why it's doing this. Let me press pause really quick and figure this out. Okay, sorry guys, I figured out what was wrong. Autodesk is like pretty weird and sometimes really dumb. So we can't loft this because it, for whatever reason, doesn't like that there's a hole between these two things. So what we're going to do is we're going to right click the extrude button here where we did this upper one. We're going to edit the feature and we're simply just going to click the middle face to make it whole. And so then we'll hit OK. And so now if we try to loft, we click here and then we click up here. It creates that perfect 3D loft that we want. And so now in this case, we will allow it to do join, and so join will connect any bodies that it's touching right now. In this case, it's connecting the bottom body to the top body, and so this is exactly what we want. So we'd hit OK. And while this doesn't look like a plate yet, we'll make it look like one. This is completely normal, and this is like a really good tutorial also on how to kind of see what's wrong and edit like what you want to make it seem more realistic. And so in our case right now, first of all, this plate is just, it's whack. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to hollow it out using the shell feature. So if we click this, it'll automatically create this kind of shell here. So it creates, now it's looking more like a vase, but we want this like thin plate to be as thin as possible. So we'll go 0.05 like that to make it a really, really thin lining here on the outside. And so inside just says that we want the shell to be in the inside. And so we'll hit OK. And we can also hide our sketches. There's no point in looking in our sketches. And so now we have to deal with the fact that this is like a planter, not really a plate. So what we'll do is we'll decrease the height here to make it more flat, and we'll expand this outer circle to make it more wider, like a plate would be. And we might also make this a little bit smaller. And so first thing is doing this height. So like I said, we can go back. In this case, I'll roll it back just for fun. And we don't need the sketches. We'll right click this and we'll hit edit feature. And we'll decrease the offset from which we did this. So if we make this like 2, I think that'll make it look more like a plate. So now if we roll forward, it automatically does like what we want. So this is starting to look a little bit more like a plate. It's a little bit like of a saucer right now. So I'm trying to think what else we can also decrease the height of these. Like, I think that's what's making it look a little weird, is that this is kind of like a little thick piece on the outside. So if we go back and edit this feature again, we'll change this from 0.05 to just add 2 zeros to make it really, really thin. So now it's starting to look a little bit more like a plate. Actually, this looks pretty good for a plate, I will say. Just to demonstrate another feature here, we're going to use the fillet tool. And what the fillet tool does, it turns like rough edges into like really nice like sanded corners almost. So to show that, I will do it on the bottom because that's where it would be more evident right now. So if I were to do this, oh, that's actually kind of weird. that's a little strange. It's like taking it's like sanding it down too much basically. I won't do it there. I'll try maybe here. Let me deselect that bottom one. You can't really see it here either, unfortunately. I'll demonstrate the fillet tool with something else, but for now, like, I would say this is a pretty decent plate. So to make this plate, we just did some extrudes, some nifty geometry drawing, and a loft and a shell feature. I apologize for that, sorry. So moving forward, the next little thing we're going to design. So again, to show you some more cool features, we're actually just another like really cool helpful tip is when you're like making stuff, you can double click and name it over here so you don't get confused with your different like parts and components. So in this case, we'll say this is a plate. And we'll come back to this later. Actually, I think I have something cool that we can do with this, but for now we'll hide it. Actually, we'll hide it in a little bit just so when we start the next piece, we don't do it on top of this. But so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to make a straw. And so while it may seem really simple, it really demonstrates a really cool idea that we're going to use. So to do that, if we go to sketch again, we'll select this. Ooh, I accidentally clicked the circle. We don't want to draw on this, so I'm just gonna unselect that. And you can see, like, even though I didn't do anything, Autodesk says that I did something. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna delete that so this timeline doesn't get messy. So we're gonna do sketch. I want to do it on the same plane, but I don't want to do it on the plate itself. And you can see like over here it's selecting it. So we're gonna hide the plate and we're gonna collect this little yellow plane here. And we're gonna unhide the plate so we don't draw on top of it. We'll just scroll on over here. I don't have to go that far. And we're gonna draw a circle just anywhere here on the axis, and we'll do, just to make it in proportion with the plate, we'll do a little 2mm circle. And so now we can hide the plate so it's not in the way. So you can see again, this sketch isn't defined. So we'll define it by right-clicking and doing the sketch dimension. In this case, 2mm is fine. We'll hit enter. But you're probably wondering, wow, this circle's still blue. Well, that's because we haven't defined where we want the center of the circle. In the case of the other circle, we clicked the origin. So that told Autodesk that we always wanted it to be in the origin. In this case, like, it's not on the origin, so the diameter is not defined. I mean, that's the diameter where the origin of the circle is. So we can kind of like click and drag it wherever we want, which is like, it would be okay. In this case, it's okay to hit Control-Z since we're sketching, but don't hit Control-Z when you're like doing other like features like this. And so one way to get rid of this, if you really want to fully define it, is that we can fix it if you right-click it. And you can see it turns it green. So fixing fully defines everything for you. Like, you don't even, I can delete this and it'll still be this shape no matter what. It fixes a circle at whatever it is right now, whatever position it is. And so in this case, we are pretty much, we're done here with this. And so what we're gonna do now is we're going to extrude it. In this case, we'll just make it a little bit bigger. We'll do 7mm. And again, new body, just one plane is okay. And so now, you're probably wondering, like, is he really just gonna make a straight circle and call this a tutorial? Well, no, what we're gonna do is we're gonna make it have some kind of curvature. And so this is a really useful feature that we're gonna do right now. And we're gonna use the construct features to like offset, create and offset different kinds of planes, so that way we can use those planes to draw. So if we do, first of all, we want to do, I don't know if plane at an angle will, line, we don't have actually a line, so plane at an angle won't work. So if we just do offset plane, first of all, if we click this bottom plane here, we can offset it by some amount here. And so at first this may not seem pretty useful just to do it in like one direction, like how I'm doing right now, but it'll be pretty useful as you'll see in a moment. So for now, we'll just offset it by 10 and hit OK. And so offsetting a plane allows you to draw on this plane now versus one of the 3 origin planes. So what we're going to do now is we're going to create, let me see what tool we're going to use. I wonder if this one will work. No, it still wants lines, huh? So if we do, did I just do that? Oh, I did just do that, sorry. Oh, we can do an axis through. So one thing that might be pretty useful is to create an axis through the cylinder. So if we just click it there, it automatically creates the center point axis. So we'll hit OK. And so now this gives us a line to work with and along with some points. So then now if we do plane at an angle, we can select this line. And now you can see that it automatically created this plane, but now we can rotate it. Oh, not in the direction that I want though. Let me see. Let me press pause again really quickly. Okay, so what we're going to do after all is, as soon as this disappears, okay, there we go. So this is what we should have so far. I have the plane hidden. The plane isn't super necessary for anything actually, so what we're going to do in fact is delete that. But what's important is this axis. And so a really cool feature Autodesk has is that you can like construct a bunch of planes, axes, and points like using like geometries we already have. In this case, we already have this axis created. And so what we're going to do is we are going to create a plane tangent to a face. And the face we want to select is point. Oh, we need to do the point first, actually. So what we're going to do before that, because I can't read, is we want to do a point at the center of a circle, sphere, or torus. And in this case, this is our circle. And we'll hit OK. So now we have our point to construct our tangent face. The plane we want is this. Oh, I don't know why we actually needed that point. Anyway, so now we have our other plane here that we're going to use to draw on. So I'm going to show you kind of like two ways that we could do this straw, this bendy straw that we're going to do. The first one is involving the loft feature, and the other one is going to use it's a little bit more complicated way, but it also allows you to do some pretty cool stuff. And so to do the loft feature, I'm thinking that we're going to need that plane that we just deleted. Whoops. Actually, no, we don't need to do. I'm trying to think the best way. It's not totally necessary to do that. So what we're going to do is we're going to sketch. And so normally we would select like a plane or some kind of surface to sketch on. This time we're going to select our newly created plane that we just made. And so in this case, we're going to draw some circle just somewhere above what we have over here. And we wanted to make it the same diameter. I don't remember the diameter, so if we go over here to inspect, we can click something and it automatically tells us the radius and the diameter and everything else that we care about it. And in this case, I wasn't paying attention, but the radius, the diameter is 2 millimeters. And so when we go and create, also another really cool tool that we can use before I create this circle. Oh, I should have mentioned this way earlier. I apologize for those of you that struggled so far. If you ever want to like deselect a tool, you can just hit escape. I know sometimes it can be annoying when you like create something and still has like you create something and still has a tool. You can either, actually I'm so sorry if I haven't said this before, you can just hit escape and it should automatically like get rid of the tool. And so now if we, I should have said that in the beginning. Anyways, so if now, the tool I was going to show you is this, like you can drag and click this here to see like the different kind of views you're getting. And if you want to straighten out, you can click on a face and it'll make it absolutely flat to that face. And you can even like rotate it if you want. So in this case, we'll now go to the circle tool and we'll just select somewhere above and we'll do 2 diameter. And so we don't have to fully define it in this case. So we'll just hit finish sketch. Now if you look, we just have this weird circle above here. But it all makes sense right now. And so, actually we are going to need that plane, but we'll need it in a little bit. So now if we extrude this using the offset, and we're going to offset it by, let's give it a little bit of distance, 7 millimeters, but we don't want it to be in that direction, so we'll do -7 millimeters. And so then we'll give this some thickness. Again, typically you want to give it a small thickness. And so you can see that it already hit all the sketches and even the new planes that we made. And so we're going to need, just to demonstrate why we're going to need another plane, if we try to just do the loft here automatically with these 2 faces, it'll come out pretty nasty. This is not a really good looking straw, so what we're going to do is we're going to give it a little bit more of kind of a guide rail to follow. And so to do that, actually just to show another tool instead of using the construct tool, what we can do is we can create a sketch. And again, there's like a bunch of different ways to do the same exact thing. So feel free to use any method you want. I'm just trying to show you as many methods as possible, like in this tutorial video, so you can get like kind of a grasp on like that there's a bunch of different ways to do stuff. So in this case, I'm gonna select the top of the, I guess the straw here to be the surface I want to sketch on. And so, and I'm doing this because I can't extrude like some and then put a gap and then extrude again, like using the same like geometry. So I'm gonna draw the same exact geometry though onto this and like offsetting that to extrude. So if I just do that, now we have like another. If I hide this to make this make sense, you can see that I have my other sketches. I have two circles here now instead of just like, it's hard to see when you have this on, but there's actually two different like geometries. And so what I'm going to do now is extrude our newly geometry by some offset distance. I'll offset it by, let's say, like 5. Oh, no, we don't want to do that. Let me hide the body, actually, to make this easier. I think what it was doing, it was selecting the body to extrude, and which is why it didn't offset. But now if we offset it, it should automatically do that. I don't want this to be super thick. So if we just right click and do edit feature automatically like this. Just want it to be like, actually I don't even think I have to extrude to use the loft feature, but I just do it just for safe practice. Which doesn't make sense. And so now if we do this and we show the body, use create loft, creates that loft, which doesn't really make sense, but now we can select 3 profiles for it to loft, and you can see it looks somewhat better. It kind of dips in here. It makes like this really weird geometry, and so you can kind of, if you drag this little circle here, you can kind of edit it, but sometimes it makes like a geometry that is like too twisted or something. You can't really do that, and so, but you can kind of mess with it to see where it'll make it biggest. In this case, I think it's shrinking it. Not sure. This is kind of the issue with the loft feature. You get like weird geometries like this sometimes. I don't even know. I wonder if it'll let me put it when it's like yellow. See, in this case, it's getting like really like twisted, which is, I guess if you're modeling like a chewed straw, this would be ideal. But oh, it doesn't actually work if you just, oh, it does work. It's just like some paradoxical geometry. So this is one way to do it. As you can see, it's not very functional. It's kind of a little bit wacky and doesn't always make sense. So what we're going to do is we're going to roll all the way back, and you can delete all features after history. So this is just keeping the timeline clean. So let's show that plane that we created. So another really cool feature that we're going to use right now is called the sweep feature. And so with sweep, it basically allows you to like create some face and sweep it, like extrude it along some kind of like guide rail line. So this is what we're going to use to create our straw. I'm sorry, I have a sneeze that won't come out. I apologize. So if we go to create sketch, and once again we're going to select that plane that we created. And so what we're actually going to do, and so this is kind of a cool thing, we're going to do a fit point spline. So this is we're going to plot some points, and it's just going to create a spline for us. And so since we want to start like, yeah, we can actually start it like down here, so it'll give it like a little bit more curvature, like starting like earlier. So if we click there, we want it to go straight a little bit maybe. This is totally up to you. You can kind of do whatever you want. I'm just doing a very basic, actually let's make this fun. Let's make this like a pretty curved straw, I guess, if this is what you like enjoy drinking with. So if we click OK, you can see that it automatically like creates like this crazy spline for us. And so now we have some like path. Man, this straw is going to be a little little wacky too, but that's okay. And so now if we go to sweep, we click the profile that we want to sweep, and then the path, we're going to select this path. And you can see it wants to cut, but I don't know why it would want to cut. So what we're going to do instead is we're going to do join. And this straw looks so weird, I'm so sorry. And so you can even like choose like how far you want this straw to go to. So if we wanted to do just like maybe half this for whatever reason, you can do that. And I actually don't know what this is. I don't want to mess with it. But oh, it doesn't do anything. Oh yeah, that's like, I think I know what that does, but it's, in our case, that's not what we're doing. So if we hit OK, it creates this really, it's not so much a straw, but you know, it serves its purpose. And if you wanted to edit it to make it a little bit more straw looking, you just go over here and just click these points and edit it. Obviously, I don't know how to model a straw, so. And see, the nice thing about Autodesk is it automatically does that feature again for us. Man, this straw is just wacky. So if we hit edit sketch, just to, that looks somewhat better. Anyway, so if we use, maybe this will make it look a little bit, so give it a little bit of that straw look. So yeah, this is that fillet tool that I was talking about earlier. You can kind of see that it's like creating some from a rough edge to some kind of like round edge here. So we can even, you can even actually rolling ball is probably the best for this. And so if we just make it to as far as we can get it to go, it'll start to look like a straw. And so if let's just shell this out actually. Will it let me shell? Where's the arrow that controls the shell? Oh, it actually won't let me shell. That's okay. So this is our straw. I'm actually going to delete this. I don't like how that looks. So again, so the straw feature kind of like goes over how to use the the sweep tool, which is a pretty useful tool, and how to create different kinds of planes and how to like create different orientations. So in this case, we created this like weird kind of angle orientation using that spline drawn on a different plane. So that's another like pretty useful tool. And so one thing, let me see how long this is going for. So I'm trying to think of what would be next. It's another good tool that we can show. So I guess we can actually go back to the plate. Are these things close to each other? No, they're not. And so what we'll do is call this straw and call that, that's good. I'll hide that. So what we're gonna do is just really quickly to show another like feature of Autodesk is we're gonna make a joint. And so joints are over here in assemble. And what joints do is it allows you to create like moving objects and kind of like model like how like your different components would move in your project. And so if you ever had dreams about joining the circus, this will be the perfect demonstration. Because we're going to make a plate spinning on some kind of pole. They do in the circus? Carnival? One of the two. So what we're going to do is we're going to sketch on the bottom of this plate. We are going to create some kind of circle, whatever diameter. We'll do 3. And then hide the plate. What we're going to do is finish sketch and did that rotate? Oh no, it didn't. And then we're going to extrude that circle that we just drew some distance downward. In this case, we'll go like 14 down. We don't want to join. We actually want a new body, which is really important in this case because we want these two things to be separate and interact with each other. So we'll hit OK. We'll label this pole. And so the one really weird thing about Autodesk is that you can create joints from bodies, because if you can see that these things are in the bodies folder, you can only create joints from components, which is a really weird thing. But and the reason, like, I'm pretty sure you could have saw it right now, is that I could have easily, instead of doing new body, I don't know, I could have sworn it was there. It said new component. I could have created a new component, but a lot of these modify and like create features you can use on bodies itself. I mean, on components you can only use on bodies. So that's typically why I create bodies first and then turn them into components. And so to turn them to components, you just click new components, and you click from bodies, and you literally just select the bodies that you want to create to components. As you can see, it gets rid of them in the bodies folder and makes them components. So components have their own origins and their own bodies and things like that. So that's really, it gets a little bit more complicated, but it especially becomes complicated if you try to edit the actual like shapes themselves, which is why you should always create it in as bodies first. And so now to make this a joint, what we're gonna do is go to assemble, and we're gonna use as built joint. You could use joint, but then you'd have to individually select all the faces, which can be kind of annoying. So if we do as built joint, we can select the different bodies that we want. And then we don't want a rigid joint. We actually want it to revolve. And it's gonna ask where do we want it to revolve. And so if we click here for reference, it's not that exciting actually. I just realized it's since this is not, like, there's no distinction on this plate, there's no way you're going to be able to see that it's rotating. We'll fix that right now actually, but this looks, I actually can't even tell it's moving. I can't tell if, I think the pole is moving. So if that's the case, we can just select them in the other way. I think it's still the pole. I think you select what you want to move first, and then the other objects like that. So for now, we'll hit OK. We'll figure out, we'll get to the bottom of this right now. And so to test that this is actually working, what we're going to do is actually use another really useful tool called the hole tool. And this does exactly what it sounds like. It creates holes. And so if we click on it, we're going to do placement, a single hole. And what this allows us to do is just literally drag and drop the hole wherever we kind of want. In this case, we don't want that big of a hole. We just want a little hole. You can put it wherever. And we'll hit, I wonder if we can, it doesn't allow us to do it like that. Okay, so then we'll just hit OK. And that did not create a hole. Created a little divot. That's interesting. Maybe I didn't select it for it to go all the way through. So if we go edit feature, distance. Oh yeah, we didn't select. We have to select that we want it to go to the other side. I think that should. Why is this being buggy too? Edit feature. Face. That's where we want to draw it on. And the whole feature is kind of weird though, I will say. Like, you can get really specific on how you want to drill a hole. You can, like, I guess if you're really doing some really like advanced carpentry, like, it would come in handy, but for the average person, I don't ever see us using this. Just select all should go through all the way through. That's I think what it might be is it might be a component. So if we go and make the hole before we do components, that might actually work. So again, we'll make this hole big. What the heck? I don't understand why it's not making a hole, dang it. I command you to make a hole. I don't know what that says. I'll just make the hole, please. That is, anyway, that is just swacky. I don't know why it's doing that, but at least we have some reference to, like, maybe I have an idea. So oh, I don't know why I hit sketch. I apologize. I meant to hit extrude. So what extrude does, that is, do I need to? Yeah, so if we use cut, this should work. Yeah, so I guess if you use extrude, you can manually cut it, and you can, to make this, no, I don't want to make this weird. Oh, it's like says, it says it's already cut. That's strange. So if it's already cut in Autodesk Mine, it must be cut. Obviously, there's some bugs to this. But now anyway, just to show that we did this correctly, if we hit animate model, we can see our plates rotating. So this is pretty useful, like if you want to make some pretty cool moving stuff, you can use this. And so and you hit escape to stop it, but it's from rotating. And so another cool thing you can do with joints is you can go to assemble, click motion link, and you can select the joint. It was already selected. And you can actually choose how much you want it to rotate or move by and things like that. So if we do this, it should. Oh, is it not? It's a drive joint. Yeah, so let's say we only wanted to rotate 2 degrees. We would just do that, and then you would have to like select the actual. That's a pain. Did it not? Oh, did I not hit OK? I think that's what it was actually. Huh. I actually don't know why that doesn't do anything. That's strange. I could. Oh, drive joints just actually rotates at 180. That's where like the position starts. So I want to revert. That's why the circle was over here. The drive joint just like it manually like moves the joint to that position. So if you want to like create like another thing based off of it, that's how you would do that. And another thing with components is you can actually drag and drop them and move them to places. So like if I want to be like just drop it there, I can, and then you would hit capture position, but I don't want it to be there, so I'm just gonna hit revert for now. And so that's pretty much all that I can show you from joints. It's pretty basic. Let me see what other tool I can go over really quickly. So I can just go, like the revolve tool, I can just show you really quick. You can just go over here. Hide the construction. Oops. I don't know what I clicked. So I'm just trying to hide. So if I just go over here and draw, let's say, a circle. And then we hit finish sketch. What the revolve tool does is it just really just it's not gonna axis. Oh, I have to select what axis I want to revolve on. We'll just do that. So since I selected this axis, it like this is actually kind of funny, I'm sorry. Since I did it so far from the origin / the axis that I did it, it's gonna revolve basically all the way around, at least as much as you want it to, like around that axis that you did. So this is pretty useful, like if you want to do like handles, or you want to like kind of mirror like a 3D like arc or anything really. It doesn't have to be a circle, it can be a square. You can pretty much, even like if you create like, I think on the picture it shows like this cool like weird shape geometry, and you can revolve it to create some kind of like bit or something like that. So another pretty useful tool. It's pretty weird. And so the final like thing we'll make, just for the sake of like actually making things, because I can go all day and just tell you what these things do, but I feel like it's more useful to actually show you versus like that. And so that's what a lot of the second tutorial is. It's more so building something with a lot of like the tools that I use here versus like not really just, I mean, it's cool to like build these like random things, but it's like me, like you following me, this is just more so like to help you understand the tools and like where to find them and like the basics to like how you should like go about like making stuff. I will say like a really like useful technique to like get better at CAD is just to literally make random things. Like try to make like everything on your desk or like other just whatever comes to mind, just like try to make it 3D and try to make it like realistic as possible. Like don't try to like make like this crappy looking straw. Like try to make it more so like wherever our like plate and pole is. Like this is actually like semi decent. So for the final thing we're going to make, what should it be? What should it be? Let me, how long are we at anyway? 50 minutes. Okay, so the final little thing we're going to design is a little bit more fun, just for the sake of time, because this video has been a little bit longer than I would have liked. But please do check out the second video that goes into a lot more detail about some of the tools that I use, and it gives you like a little bit more of an understanding of how to use CAD, and you actually create something pretty cool. It's a really cool like prototype that I made, so please go check that video out. But for now, to end this video, we are going to create a Christmas tree, and in the spirit of the holidays. Man, I'm running out of space on here. We'll go in this, man, I'm really running out of space here. We'll just go up here and we'll create the sketch on this plane. So we just go up. So we're gonna just create a basic little, I think I'm doing this right, Christmas tree here. Yeah, this seems about right. If this part's a little fast, you can always slow down, but I'm just creating. We'll go back. Actually, this will be really useful in a second. I'll show why. So it doesn't actually really matter like the size of these spikes. I think Autodesk is actually automatically doing it. I'll explain what it's doing right now though. And for this star, how do I do a star? I'll just do. Man, I am not artistically talented whatsoever. That should be good. So this is actually going to show us a lot of cool features that Autodesk has. So as you can see, not all of these are pretty symmetrical. And so, oh, actually, maybe they were. Yeah, actually, so Autodesk, you can add a lot of constraints to your geometry to make it like really nice and really like, not well defined necessarily, but really, what's the word, symmetrical in a way. So I actually don't know why it has a lot of these, so I'm just going to delete these and just show you by hand what this actually does. So what the heck is parallel? Anyway, so what we're going to do is we're going to make this really symmetrical Christmas tree by putting some constraints on it. Oh, it was the parallel, that's what it was in. So what we're going to do is we're going to make a lot of things equal to each other so that they're all... Actually, I'm going to Control Z this. What I should have done is just Control click all of these lines. Even though I already think they're equal to each other, we're going to make them equal to each other. And this automatically makes all these lines equal to each other. And so we're going to do the same, but for these now. So, oh, I missed one, but go back. So if I go back and click this, and this, and this, make those repeat equal. What the heck? We're going to Control Z. You can... Yeah, that looks fine. It made it pretty equal there. And so now what we're going to do is we're going to draw a line from the tip of the tree down here, and we're going to right click that line and make it a normal sketch dimension. And so normal sketch dimensions are really useful for like creating geometries, but not necessarily like making, like right now you can see that I can't select the surface area, but before I did this I could. So it's more useful for like creating geometries. And so I'm going to use a really cool tool. If I hit the tools, no, actually I can just hit finish sketch, and then I can go over here to create and use the, is it modifier? the mirror tool right here. And so the objects that I want to mirror, actually I have to do this in the sketch, I'm so sorry. If we go to edit sketch, it should be, yeah, the create and then mirror. We're gonna use this instead. And so to avoid having to select all the individual lines, I'm just gonna draw the box and then control click these lines because I missed them. For the mirror line, we're just gonna select, it won't let me select it because I accidentally selected it earlier. So now if I select it, it automatically mirrors. So if we hit finish sketch, I just realized I shouldn't have mirrored it. This is gonna be a weird looking Christmas tree. So that was the purpose of the mirror tool, but we don't actually have to mirror it now that I realize it. So what we can do instead is we can use the revolve tool. And so if we, it won't let me revolve because we need a line. So if we go to, sorry, this little last bit's a little bit all over the place, but if we click line, just, if we actually clicked line and draw from there to there, and then hit, just to be safe, I'm going to draw another line bigger than the Christmas tree, and then hit finish sketch. So now when we try to revolve it, we want to select all the shapes, and then the axis we want would be that bigger line. And I realize my Christmas tree skills aren't as well as I would have hoped. Also, we should have done this 360. 360. And this Christmas tree came out very, very poorly. Oh my gosh. But, it's the idea that counts. I guess what you could do is you could create like holes in the sketch and to do that. But for now, we won't actually do that. This is our little sad Christmas tree, but I hope you guys learned a lot. Please check out the second video that, like I said, that goes more into detail about a lot of the tools and stuff like that. So please check that out.